Hello, my name is Cobe Lawson. I'm going to be showing off my code for the Week 4 project for the Promineo Tech Backend Software Development course. So you can see right here, this is step 1. I am taking an array of integers of ages right here that were already given to me. I'm finding the last place in it by going ages minus length minus 1, since arrays start at 0. And then I'm printing out that first, it's the 93 minus 3, and you can see down here, I get that 90 in the run code. So then from there, to add a new array, since this array is immutable and is a certain length, to add another place into it, I had to create a new array that is just the same length plus 1. That way I could add in that new spot. First, I added in all the old bits of information from the last array, and then I added in my new age, which I put at 44, just as a random number. And then I was able to subtract that 44, or subtract the 3 from the 44, and I get 41 down here. You can see that at the bottom. Then from there, I went ahead and got the sum of all the ages, and using a for loop, and then I was able to find the average by dividing that by the length of the array, and I printed that down here, 30. For the second step, I took a array of strings, they were names, and I was going to find the length, or the average number of characters in each name in the whole array. So I went through, made a for loop, made a string for every individual piece of the array, and then I was able to find the length of each string and add the number sum for the length of the name. And then I was able to find the average length of letters by taking that sum and dividing it by the number of characters that were in my string array. And then from there, I was able to, or for the next part, I was going to concatenate all the names together. So I made a new string that was empty, and then I made another for loop, and I concatenated using the .concat method that comes with the string to add each individual name in place. So you can see down here, Sam, Tommy, Tim, Sally, Buck, Bob. All right. For step 3 and 4, step 3 was asking how you find the last element of an array. And to do that, you can find the length of it and then subtract 1 to find that last one, since again it starts at 0, so it would be 1 minus that. And then for finding the first element in an array, which was step 4, you can just use 0, since that's what all arrays start at. So for step 5, I took a array of integers, and I was able to assign it or come back up here for this array. I was able to find the lengths of each number, and I was able to add the length of each name into a new array, an integer array that keeps the lengths of each individual name. And then for step 6, you can see down here, this was calculating the sum of all of these name lengths. So I took that same array and I would do plus equals, which is just a way to iterate on itself, and add for all the numbers, all the names. For step 7, I made a new method that returns a string, inputting in a string and an int, and I was able to create a new word that concatenates all the words that are in said array. For step 8, I was taking a first name, you can see here, and a last name, and this new method returns a string that will be the full name. So to do that, I first started the name out with the first name. I made the full name equal to the first name, and then I added in a space here. That is what this concatenate string space is for. And then I was able to concatenate the last name after the space. So, whoops. And then it returns the full name. Now for this next method, I made a array, or I take an array of integers and I try to determine if the sum of all the integers is greater than 100. If it is greater than 100, it returns true because it's a Boolean method. Otherwise, it will return false. Even if it's equal to 100, it has to be above to return true. For the next step, I am finding the average in an array of doubles. So I made a double sum and a double average. I was able to add all the individual pieces of the array and run that in my running sum. And then I divided it by the length of the array to get the average. And that's what it returns, a double. For the 11th part, I take two arrays and I am trying to determine if the sum of one of those arrays, one of those double arrays, is greater than the sum of the second array. So you can see here I had to make a first sum for the first array and a second sum for the second array. Same with the averages, first and second. Set those equal to 0 just to initialize them. And then I made a for loop to get that running sum for the first one and the same thing for the second one. Find those averages. And then if the first average is greater than the second, return true. Otherwise, return false. Again, it's a Boolean method. For the 12th step, it is returning a Boolean, and you take a Boolean value of if it is hot outside and a double value of the amount of money in your pocket. It's determining, will you buy a drink? So we ran an if statement. If it is hot outside, equaling true, and not or, but and the money in your pocket is greater than 10.5, it'll return true. Otherwise, it returns false. Now, this last step, 13, is my own personal method. It takes two integer arrays, and you can do this for doubles or other types of primitive data types, but I wanted to use integers just because it seemed the simplest to work with at first. And it compares to see if they are the same length, if they have the same amount of data in them. It returns true if so and false if not. So I named it longer array. It is a Boolean, and it takes one integer array, array 1, and one integer array, array 2. If the length of 1 is equal to the length of 2, it returns true. Otherwise, it returns false. And that is basically it. That was my week 4 project. You can see up here. I was using VS Code, Visual Studio, and that will be it. Thank you. Bye.